Hello and welcome to NCAA Week 6. We're going to look at the Week 6 highlights, and we're going to talk about really maybe the week that turned college football on its head in 2014 and just really threw a wrench into the whole system as we head towards the first college football playoffs. So let's talk about, I'm John, by the way.
I'm Bobby.
And I'm Josh. And we're going to dive right in and talk about some of these games. The first one is the first one we saw was Arizona at Oregon.
The week really started off in a way that everyone kind of had to start
sort of
thinking,
set it up.
It's going to be an interesting looking week, especially after next one we're going to talk about. The first two ranked games were both upsets.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Oregon losing to Arizona. First
home.
of all, Arizona is undefeated, so they're not necessarily a bad team. And Oregon's secondary has already shown a lot of weaknesses.
Sure.
But I mean, Arizona ends up winning. I didn't.
You got to think it's not a fluke. I mean, they beat them last year handily, and then this year to go up to Oregon, they've got their number in some regards. But all I have to say is Rich Rodriguez has got a good thing going at Arizona, and Michigan doesn't have a good thing going at Michigan. So
No, they don't.
Wow.
Yeah. The next one, another pretty big game. The Mormons, BYU. I mean, they lost to Utah State. What about that?
Well, you got to take into consideration Taysom Hill going down, but aside from that, I mean, it looked like Utah State was in the game, and we said at the beginning of the year we expected big things from Utah State. They kind of started off slow, but I think they showed a little bit of
without
potential
their
here.
starting quarterback.
That's right.
Oh, it's without it. Okay.
Utah State does not have their starting quarterback.
But Garrison still put up over 300 yards.
Right. And this kind of showed BYU's whole game plan is Taysom Hill. That's their team right there. Taysom Hill is the reason they win games, and without him, they couldn't.
And obviously their defense has some holes in it, in that they can have over 300 yards put up against them. Okay, Bama struggled against Ole Miss. Shot themselves in the foot over and over again with penalties and just sloppy play.
I think it's a mix of what you said, penalties and play calling. It was some really bad play calling by Lane Kiffin. And then some penalties that just weren't some good runs that had to be set back because of a holding call or
over and over again.
It sounded like a total team effort in this. Is it?
It was overall, I think, once again, the good Bo came and played this game instead of bad Bo.
Let's give some respect to Bo Wallace because it's good Bo, bad Bo, and that was a good.
Well, and Bo Wallace took advantage of it seemed like a very confused Alabama secondary. They did not know what they were doing out there, and so if Alabama doesn't figure that out, they're going to be in trouble later on. TCU. Another big surprise to me. I wasn't expecting this at all.
I didn't.
They took Oklahoma and they beat them, and it was a close game.
It was a fun game. It came down fourth quarter, right down fourth and something, and they didn't get it.
And Oklahoma was not able to get the fourth down conversion, which was huge. I mean, what a stop!
Yeah. Well, you've got to give credit to Texas TCU. I mean, I think they're shocking people. I thought, they just recently joined the Big 12. They kind of struggled. Yeah, they kind of struggled, but it looks like this year could be a really big year for Texas Christians.
And Boykin, I mean, he put 318 yards.
TCU's goal is they're not going to stop you on defense every single time, but they can score on you every single time.
Yeah, they can. As far as a big, as far as we thought Auburn was going to beat LSU.
Sure.
Right.
We were pretty confident of that, but man, did anybody think 41-7?
No.
Okay, so this is starting me to lean more towards, obviously Auburn's a really good team. LSU stinks. They don't know how to play football. This is a really bad team.
Okay, they're terrible. Do you think it's time for Les Miles to jump ship and go back to where he's from in Michigan and take over a program where expectations are lower?
Well, I've heard rumors Jim Harbaugh might head to Michigan.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, they're sort of upset there.
But I wonder if Les Miles has peaked at LSU.
I mean, Michigan has money. They can get a good coach, if they need a good coach.
And they need something.
And they're going to still be getting players, so as long as they can get a good head coach, I think either one of them could do some good stuff.
All right, let's go. As far as Auburn, Nick Marshall is rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing it both in the air and on the ground, like he did last year. He's still moving along, and
I think he's proving himself a little bit more in the passing game this year. I think they caught a lot of teams off guard running that offense, and this year I think, especially watching the game against Kansas State, They didn't play great the whole game, but when it mattered in the fourth quarter, they had to get first downs and they had to score. He led them down the field, throwing the football.
I think we're going to see a lot in next week's game, which we'll cover in a little bit. But Mississippi State, speaking of next week's game, Mississippi State beat Texas A&M.
Beat Texas A&M handily. I mean,
pretty solid.
It looks closer because Texas A&M scored like 14 points in the
fourth quarter,
but it was a blowout.
I think we saw holes in Texas A&M's armor before this game, and I think against Arkansas, a good point. And I just think a little bit too many people got too goo gaga over them over their Week 1 win over South Carolina, which looking at South Carolina right now might not be that impressive considering they lost to Kentucky.
And Hill is young, but I mean Hill still put up 365 yards in that game.
Sure,
4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions.
It once again came down to both A&M's defense, which is lacking every year. They never have a good defense, never had a good secondary. In anything defensively, they always struggle. And unless you can solve your defensive problems when you're going against a quarterback who can put as many numbers up as your quarterback.
Sure.
Well, and last week we didn't know Mississippi State's quarterback's name, Dak Prescott.
Sure.
This week we know his name because he showed that he really was. I mean, he was the anchor for that team.
I would say he's going to make himself in the Heisman candidate position if he keeps playing like this.
I mean, would you guys consider him a all-SEC first-team quarterback at this
Possibly.
point?
At this point, I mean, Hill is still not out of it, even though he had a lot of interceptions there. But
I think
possibly.
Most impressive body work, probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nick Marshall could be number one.
Another big surprise. Okay, I thought the UCLA Bruins. I thought they were on track.
I thought they were the best team in
Pac-12.
Pac-12.
My goodness, Utah walks in there and beats them. What's up with that?
I'm not speechless. I mean, we just talked about how they had a close game and then they just put on the throttle and they were just full steam ahead. They finally waking up and then they just.
I did not know UCLA lost till the morning after they played.
Yeah,
because I saw they were playing them. And I'm like, okay, so they're gonna win that and play a big team next week. What?
Late field goal and then UCLA missed field goal opportunity to get ahead.
I guess the hype was just a little too much for them.
Maybe so. As far as Notre Dame.
Was I not the only one that called this game?
No, you did call it.
I said Stanford would beat Notre Dame too. I did.
You did?
I said Stanford
as well.
I said
I was wrong.
would win.
You said Notre Dame would win, and Notre Dame won.
They did.
They won.
Everett Golson?
Now, I wasn't that impressed with Golson, though. Golson, he did okay, but it was a defensive battle. I mean, it was a battle.
He threw that pick in the end zone, but he still keeps those plays alive and scrambles out, and he's just a game changer.
We'll see what Notre Dame's made of in a couple of weeks.
Well, and that was a late. Even then, that was a late touchdown pass there in the fourth quarter. Right there at the end, and they got it, and I mean, tucked it away, 17-14. So that was a good win.
Makes me wonder if Stanford's got enough to even mess with Oregon down the road. I don't know. They look like they're fading to me.
Yeah, they're not looking that strong to me either. I sort of have wonder about that one.
Then again, I think anybody with a good quarterback can give Oregon a hard time.
And good defense. Yeah. Michigan State. Here we had Nebraska, who was undefeated as far as the Big Ten was concerned. Michigan State goes in there and beats them.
I thought Michigan State would win this. They had a good lead, and almost blew this game.
Yeah.
Michigan State doesn't seem to be able to finish. I think when we saw the game against Oregon, they were right there, and they just can't close it out. I mean, Nebraska came within a drop touchdown pass of winning this game.
Yeah.
Michigan State almost choked it away. So I don't know whether they have that finish.
That being said, they're still probably the leader of
a Big Ten right now.
I think Ohio State stock is rising.
Ohio State, their stock should be rising.
And I don't just say it because Virginia Tech beat them, but I say it because I think that Barrett was thrown into a tough defensive situation week 2, but he's starting to get that offense. I think, and the schedule is somewhat favorable.
This being said, now all these teams that have one loss all of a sudden have newfound hope that they can make it into the playoffs.
I'm saying it right now, no team will be undefeated at the end of the year going into the playoff, except maybe Florida State.
Except maybe Florida State.
Maybe so.
Their schedule's cake. So
yeah. We'll see. And maybe I don't think Notre Dame will be able to pull that off either. Arizona State beat USC. Is that a big surprise?
Well, the way it happened, a Hail Mary, I just don't understand. Guys standing all over the place, nobody can jump up and swat the ball.
There's been a lot of Hail Marys lately, and I don't get how the defense can't.
Technically, they shouldn't be successful.
Teams must be really being strategic about these Hail Marys because it's happening often or defenses are just shutting down.
That's right. All right, well, that's our week 6 recap, and stick around for week 7 preview.